I'm 33, and I was married to my ex-husband Peter, he's 39 now, for 8 years before everything fell apart. We officially split up about a year ago, after he dropped a bombshell. He had been cheating on me with his college ex-girlfriend for 3 entire years. I never saw it coming. The betrayal stung even more because we had a daughter together, just 4 years old at the time. It blew my mind that he could carry on an affair like that while being a father. But it was real, and after he came clean, I filed for divorce and made up my mind to raise our daughter on my own. A few months after the divorce was finalized, Peter went ahead and married Mandy, the same woman he'd been having the affair with. I didn't even hear it from him directly, one of his friends mentioned it in passing. Not surprising, though. We completely cut contact once the divorce was done. I ended up getting full custody of our daughter. Peter was allowed to visit on weekends, but only with me there to supervise. For a while during the divorce process, he did show up a few weekends, and I allowed it mainly because our daughter seemed happy to see him. But once he got remarried, he just stopped coming by altogether. I didn't push him to continue either. Honestly, I was relieved. I didn't have to sit in the same room anymore pretending everything was fine while he awkwardly played with our daughter. It's been nearly a full year since everything was finalized, and if I'm remembering correctly, the last time I saw Peter was about 8 months ago. Since then, I've kept my head down working, raising my daughter, and just doing my best to give her a peaceful life. But then, out of nowhere, last weekend Peter showed up at my door. No text, no call, just him standing there when I opened it. I assumed he was finally coming to see our daughter, but he told me he was there to talk to me. That immediately felt off. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, and there was absolutely nothing left to say. Still, I gave him a moment to speak. And that's when he dropped another bomb. Apparently, his new wife Mandy was threatening to take legal action against me if I didn't hand over full custody of our daughter. Her reasoning? She believed that as a single mom, I wasn't capable of providing the kind of life they could. She claimed I was robbing our daughter of a comfortable upbringing on purpose, no less, and that this somehow amounted to neglect. Peter stood there and calmly told me that unless I gave them full custody soon, Mandy planned to move forward with legal charges. According to her, I wasn't fit to be raising my daughter alone. That's when I completely lost it. I slammed the door right in his face and told him he better leave before I called the police. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that he had the nerve to show up and demand I give up my daughter after ignoring us for almost an entire year. And as for Mandy's so-called legal threats? Laughable. Being a single parent isn't neglect, it's reality. I wasn't afraid of her threats. What did scare me, though, was the idea of Peter showing up again and reopening old wounds for our daughter. It took months to help her move on from him without explaining the full truth, and I wasn't about to let him undo that progress. To make things worse, what Peter said honestly creeped me out. He didn't seem to grasp how disturbing it was to suggest I just hand over my child like it was no big deal. That night, I made the decision to pack up and move in with my parents for a while, at least until I felt safe again. It also worked out because our nanny could take a few days off, which she definitely needed. So, 2 days after Peter's surprise visit, I left and settled in at my parents' house. I hadn't heard a word from him since until 2 days ago, when he showed up again. This time, he came to my parents' place. Of course he knew that was the only other place I might be. But now I wasn't alone. I had my mom and dad by my side, and with them there, I felt stronger and ready to stand my ground. Our daughter was asleep upstairs with my mom watching over her, so I didn't need to worry about being overheard. I could say exactly what I wanted. Peter looked genuinely upset this time and told me they weren't actually going to press charges. They couldn't, even if they wanted to. But he still thought it was unfair that I got full custody just because he cheated. He explained that the real reason he showed up before was that both he and Mandy had been feeling the absence of our daughter. Apparently, Mandy had met her a few times back when Peter would take our daughter out, and they'd swing by to see her. So in their heads, they started seeing themselves as co-parents. Mandy even believed she could have been a great stepmom if only I'd given her the opportunity. Peter said it wasn't right of me to file for full custody knowing full well that he had little chance of getting joint custody, not with our daughter being so young, and not after what he did. And one of the major reasons he didn't qualify for joint custody was because of his job. He works long hours and travels a lot, which means he can't be there for her in the day-to-day. And as for Mandy, I barely know her. There was no way a court would hand over custody to someone who's essentially a stranger to the child. The best arrangement his lawyer could swing was supervised visitation. That's it. But now, somehow, he wants to pin that on me? Like I'm the one who ruined his shot at joint custody? No. He did that to himself when he chose to lie and cheat for years. His affair absolutely impacted the custody battle. And once the divorce was finalized, he pretty much gave up and let me take full custody without a fight. so I honestly don't get why he's blaming me now. He said they both just want to reconnect with our daughter, that's why they came asking for another chance. Peter tried convincing me to give him and Mandy another chance to be involved in our daughter's life. He said it would benefit her in the long run and warned that one day, I'd regret keeping them apart. According to him, our daughter might grow up resenting me, demanding to know why I didn't let her have a relationship with her father. He claimed he was trying to prevent that outcome, that's why he wanted me to let them reconnect with her now. Despite the cheating, he insisted he'd always been a good dad, and that Mandy was desperate to see her again, just one more time. I didn't have a response ready in that moment, but deep down, I already knew how I felt. I didn't trust either of them. Not one bit. Peter had lied and betrayed me for 3 years straight, and Mandy had been right there with him in the mess. The idea of suddenly allowing the two of them back into my daughter's life after everything they'd done felt completely absurd. I don't know if I made the right call, but I told Peter, again, that he couldn't undo the past. I reminded him that he'd been completely absent from our daughter's life for the last 8 months. He had no idea how hard it had been for me to explain that absence to a 4-year-old. And now, out of the blue, just because he and his new wife were ready to play happy family, I was supposed to let him walk back in? No way. I told him to leave and shut the door. He left that time, but the peace didn't last long. Since then, he's been blowing up my phone with text after text, trying to convince me to change my mind. He keeps pushing the idea that our daughter needs both parents, not just me, and that I'll regret shutting him out when she grows older and turns against me. Now I'm genuinely starting to question myself, am I doing the right thing? Am I being too harsh by keeping them away? Am I hurting my daughter more by trying to protect her? That guilt crept in a little, I won't lie. Update 1. After thinking it through more clearly, I made my decision, I'm not letting him back in. I can't believe I even considered it. I think I was just feeling overly emotional after unexpectedly seeing him again for the first time in months. But no, it's not happening. I talked to my parents about how I was feeling, and they were both firmly against even entertaining a conversation with him. They reminded me of everything he put me through. He wasn't just a liar, he wrecked my sense of trust and made it hard for me to believe in relationships again. We weren't in a bad marriage, but apparently it wasn't enough for him. I guess nothing ever would have been. It's been 2 days since my original post, and most of the comments people left were urging me to never let him back into our lives. Some even said I should look into getting a restraining order. And honestly, that's probably what I'll do if he shows up again. Peter doesn't seem like the kind of guy who gives up easily, even when he should. I've already reached out to my lawyer. We're discussing the possibility of terminating any remaining parental rights he has because frankly, he doesn't deserve them. Any man who can walk away from his child for 8 months with no explanation and then show up when it's convenient for him is not someone I'm ever going to trust with my daughter. And let's be real, what was he even doing during all those months he disappeared? I have no idea, and that alone is enough of a reason not to open the door to him again. He can't just pop back in now that he feels like playing dad. That's not how things work. That's not how my life works. I blocked him on everything now because his last few messages really rubbed me the wrong way. He started framing everything like I'm the bad guy, the heartless woman who's keeping him away from his child, as if he didn't cheat on me and then vanish. Suddenly, he's the victim of my cruelty? Give me a break. I can't believe I even let myself start second-guessing things because of his reappearance. I guess I'm not coping with this as well as I thought I was. That's why I've decided to listen to what most people suggested. I'm going to find a therapist. It's probably the healthiest thing I can do for myself right now. At the very least, it'll give me something constructive to focus on and maybe help me work through all the overthinking I've been drowning in. Update 2. It's been 3 days since that last update, and today I received an email from Peter. In it, he explained why he came back into our lives after all this time. And let me tell you, it's even more messed up than I imagined. Honestly, I don't know what kind of twisted games he and Mandy are playing, but I'm beyond relieved that I already spoke to my lawyer and got a head start on protecting myself and my daughter. Some of the things Peter wrote in that email honestly left me disturbed. Concerning doesn't even begin to cover it. He admitted that after our divorce was finalized, Mandy told him she didn't want him having any further contact with me. And just like that, he gave up custody of our daughter so he could focus entirely on being a good husband to her. He then gave me a whole backstory about how they broke up back in college. According to him, their relationship ended because Mandy had always been extremely focused on starting a family, while Peter wanted someone with bigger ambitions, someone who wasn't in such a rush to settle down and have kids. But apparently, time changed them both. When they ran into each other again a couple of years ago at a college reunion, they realized they'd made a mistake by letting go of each other, and that's when the affair started. Mandy dumped her boyfriend, and Peter said he wanted to tell me the truth, but by the time he finally gathered the courage, I was already pregnant. The longer he waited, the messier it got. And to make matters more complicated, Mandy had started growing attached to our daughter too. So he just kept the affair going, lying to me for 3 years, until it finally hit him how screwed up the whole situation was. That's when he confessed, we got divorced, and he stepped back from parenting to devote himself to his shiny new marriage with Mandy. But apparently, things didn't turn out the way they expected. Over time, Mandy realized she still desperately wanted to be a mom. The problem was, she was now too old to have a baby naturally without serious health risks. So, instead of going down a normal path like adoption or surrogacy, they decided it would be easier to co-parent the daughter Peter already had with me. That's the real reason he showed up at my door that day. When I made it clear that I wasn't about to be manipulated or bullied into giving up my child, he tried switching tactics. Out went the intimidation, in came the guilt-tripping. And now, with this email, he was hoping that if he just laid it all out honestly, I'd somehow understand and sympathize. He told me that Mandy genuinely felt like she'd been a mother at times, especially during the moments when Peter would bring our daughter over to visit and I wasn't around. She apparently cherished those moments and now wanted another chance to live that life again. And according to Peter, I was the only one who could make that dream come true for them. This email was their big emotional appeal, asking me to give them the family they claim they've always wanted, all for Mandy's sake. Honestly, I have to hand it to them. It takes a pretty wild level of nerve and shamelessness to send something like that to the woman you cheated on and betrayed for 3 entire years, including the time I was pregnant. And now, after cutting us off for nearly a year, they want me to let them waltz back in and play family? Just because Mandy suddenly remembered she wants to be a mom and now it's medically complicated? They had options. They could have gone the adoption route. They could have tried surrogacy. But no, they decided the best course of action was to show up and demand to be handed the very child they had discarded like she was nothing. Like she was some toy they'd gotten bored with and left behind until it hit them that maybe she could be shared like some kind of family keepsake. I already thought Peter and Mandy were out of touch with reality, but this is a whole new level of delusion. This is my daughter. Not some second-hand item they can pick back up whenever it suits them. Thankfully, I'd already talked to my lawyer before this email ever landed in my inbox. I forwarded it to her immediately, because the content was truly unhinged. The idea that I would ever agree to something like this, it's so far-fetched that I'm still struggling to wrap my head around it. I don't even know what's more insulting, the request itself, or the fact that they genuinely believed it would work. I'm honestly just grateful that my daughter's still too young to understand any of this. I wouldn't even know how to begin explaining it to her if she were older. I can barely make sense of it myself. If someone else had told me this story, I probably would have laughed at the absurdity of it. But I'm living it, and it's a nightmare. I keep wondering what was going through their minds when they came up with this plan. Because it was a plan. You can tell they treated it like some kind of twisted operation, carefully strategized and executed. But right now, my only priority is keeping my daughter and myself safe. After this email, it's beyond clear that I can't trust either of them. They've made that painfully obvious. Update 3. Yesterday, my lawyer officially contacted Peter and informed him that the petition to terminate his parental rights has already been filed. The ball is rolling now. My lawyer had told Peter that if he didn't sign the paperwork soon, it could spiral into another custody battle, and nobody wanted that. But of course, he didn't take that well. Just a few hours ago, both Peter and Mandy showed up at my parents' house right as I was about to leave for work. I told them, clear as day, that they needed to get off the property or I'd call the police. They did step back to the street, but they weren't leaving. Mandy stood there, dead serious, and said that I was ruining my daughter's future. According to her, everyone supposedly knew I wasn't capable of raising a child alone, and because of my pride and ego, I was depriving her of a real family. I was honestly stunned by how insulting that was. Like, what was that even supposed to mean? I snapped. Really lost it. I yelled at her, full volume, because her words hit a nerve in the worst way. This woman, who literally helped tear apart my marriage, had the nerve to stand on my street and lecture me about what my daughter needed. She had no right. None. She was the one who wrecked my home. And Peter? He happily went along for the ride. And now they both had the audacity to show up and ask to play house with the daughter they left behind? Even someone completely out of their mind would recognize how ridiculous that sounds. And let's get something straight, I'm more than capable of raising my daughter. I have a stable job, I earn enough to give her a good life, and I'm doing just fine on my own. She doesn't need their chaos. Right now, I am her family. And who knows? Maybe one day I'll meet someone and she'll have a father figure again, but today, I'm enough. What really infuriates me is that they cut my daughter off for nearly a year. They didn't care back then. But now, suddenly, I'm not enough for her? These people are truly unhinged. It hurts my brain to even think about the level of delusion we're dealing with here. I told them to get out of my face because I was already late for work. But Mandy decided to throw a full-blown tantrum right there on the street. I'm not exaggerating. She sat down in the middle of the road and said I wasn't allowed to leave until she got to see my daughter. She straight up refused to move. I asked Peter to get her off the pavement, and instead, he sat down next to her. I swear, if I hadn't been so pissed off, I probably would have laughed at how absurd it was. Thankfully, my dad saw how done I was and finally called the police. We had to wait a while for them to arrive, and the whole time, Peter and Mandy just kept arguing, throwing accusations, and threatening to take action against me for keeping them from their so-called family. That word depriving kept coming up, and it made my blood boil. I'm not depriving my daughter of anything, I'm protecting her. If anything, she'd be in danger with them. I've seen how unstable they are. Who's to say they wouldn't just run off with her one day if I gave them access? That thought alone keeps me up at night. I told them exactly what I thought of their behavior and how disturbing this whole thing had become. But of course, they didn't back down. They insisted I was only doing this out of spite, like I had some personal vendetta. Well, maybe I do have one. And can you blame me? They blew up my life. They humiliated me. So yeah, maybe I am a little bitter. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong to keep my daughter away from people who clearly have no idea how to respect boundaries or show actual care. The police finally arrived and removed them, but even then, they didn't show 1 ounce of regret. They just kept shouting that they'd be back and that I couldn't keep their daughter from them. It was honestly disturbing. I'd been amused at first by how pathetic it all was, but in the end, I was shaken. That kind of behavior, it's not just dramatic, it's scary. So today, I stayed home from work. I was too paranoid to go anywhere after what happened. I also filed for a restraining order, which should have been done weeks ago, honestly. After what they pulled, I no longer feel safe staying at any address Peter knows. So, I've decided it's time to move. Update 4. I've moved into a new apartment. Peter has no idea where I live now, and I plan to keep it that way. The restraining order has been granted, and I now officially have full custody of my daughter. Somehow, I've managed to hold on to my sanity through this circus. I'm out of that mess, and I've made it clear to all my friends that I don't want to hear a single thing about Peter or Mandy ever again. And I definitely don't want them hearing anything about me. The last few weeks have been tense. Peter kept harassing me from different numbers, while Mandy spread lies and nasty rumors about me. I know they were doing everything they could to tear me down, but in the end, they failed. I'm still standing. My daughter is safe. I'm okay. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. She's all the family I need, and the feeling's mutual.